In most auto shows, we know what certain cars makers will bring. We know what Mercedes will bring, what Ferrari will bring, and what Toyota will bring. But there are some few cases that automakers just go completely out of their way and make something crazy. And this is what Chrysler did with the ME412 back in 2004. A crazy supercar, which every car maker would be proud to make it part of their lineup. But sadly, this car never saw the day of production. So hello guys and welcome back to another video, and here is Chrysler ME412, the exotic from Detroit. Before talking about the ME412, we should talk about the DaimlerChrysler Era first, since without this partnership the ME412 wouldn't have been possible. In the mid-90s, after the booming 80s, both brands, Daimler Mercedes and Chrysler Corporation, were facing financial troubles. Mercedes was mostly facing problems in America, thanks to the high production cost, while Chrysler, together with Dodge, Jeep and Plymouth, were mostly facing problems thanks to their aging lineup. So both sides were looking for a partner, and in 7th of May 1998, DaimlerChrysler AG was formed. CEO of Mercedes at the time, Jürgen Schrim, called this partnership Merge of Equals, or Marriage Made in Heaven. In first glance, this looked like a great partnership. Mercedes would win from Chrysler's infrastructure, while Chrysler by sharing parts and platforms with different Mercedes models. But everything just went wrong. The main problem was that the brands were so different, and if this wasn't enough, more than a partnership, Mercedes was just simply owning Chrysler, with basically making every decision. And the cars that came out of this merge had no identity, and in 90% of the cases they were terrible cars, and this could be said for both sides, Chrysler and Mercedes. But surprisingly, the concepts of this era were truly amazing. Concepts like Chrysler Kronos, a 4-door luxury sedan with a V10 under the bonnet, Dodge Super 80 Hemi, a true factory old-school hot rod, with a 5.7-liter Hemi V8 and a striking style, Dodge Kahuma, a minivan without B-pillars, or the ridiculous Dodge Tomahawk. The 2005 Jeep Hurricane was another crazy monster with a 5.7-liter Hemi V8, but nothing of this became a reality. Instead, we got cars like PT Cruiser, Crossfire, Nitro, etc. And the ME412 is part of the great concepts that didn't see the green light of production. The main reason why so many prototypes were coming at this time was because Daimler was trying to rebuild the identity of Chrysler, so basically they were throwing everything into the wall. The ME412 was the idea of Wolfgang Bernhard, which was the chief operating officer. Like many cases with this type of concept cars, the ME was built in a short time, so Chrysler only managed to build a car which wasn't fully functional for the motor show. The ME412 was meant to be an image for DaimlerChrysler, and not only for Chrysler, since it would use parts from both sides of the ocean. And the heart came from Germany, since the 412 was powered by the legendary Mercedes M120. The main thing here is that Mercedes had discontinued the M120 back in 98, when it was replaced by the M137. This probably happened because Chrysler was supposed to use parts from the previous generation Mercedes, kinda like Aston Martin is doing today with Mercedes parts. But the more interesting thing about the 412 is that how this car utilized the M120. Differently from all the performance cars that had come before it, the displacement stayed the same at 5,980 cc. Keep in mind that many supercars use the M120, Pagani being the most notable one, but the brainchild of Horatio used the 7 and the 7.3 liter version of this engine. But if you want to know more about the M120, I have made a full video about it. The DaimlerChrysler team decided decided to pack the V12 monster, which stock produced 405 horsepower, with 4 turbos, and this basically doubled the power. The maximum horsepower was at 850, and so was the torque, at 850 pound-foot. These were crazy numbers for the time, especially when you consider how much the ME412 weighed. Thanks to the use of composite materials and carbon fiber, Chrysler had managed to give the car a curb weight of 1300 kilos. And thanks to this, the ME412 had a power-to-weight ratio of 650 per ton, something that put Chrysler on a completely another level. With a power-to-weight ratio like this, the ME412 could hit a top speed of 400 km per hour, and had a crazy acceleration time of 2.9 seconds. These were just crazy numbers 14 years ago. The ME412 looked and still looks pretty amazing. It's not just a cool looking car, because that can be said for most of the supercars out there, but it's a truly beautiful car. It's quite interesting because here we see many design styles used by some Chryslers all the time, but here they have aged pretty well, while the interior looks like every concept interior of the time. Brutal and exposed aluminum everywhere. But with concept like this, one thing is important. Why never made it into production? Now, differently from most concepts like this, the ME412 was built with the idea that one day might enter production. The car made its debut at the 2004 Detroit Motor Show, and the ME412 stole the show. Despite the fact that some really cool concepts were presented that year, like the Bronco and the Shelby Cobra concept from Ford, or the Range Stormer from Land Rover. Like I mentioned, the car shown at the show wasn't fully functional, but Chrysler managed to build a fully functional prototype in less than 4 months. But why this amazing American supercar never hit the road? 2 were the major reasons. First, Chrysler found out that they would have to spend millions in order to build a road car. The concept was built to comply with all the American regulation, but there was still a long way to go. So they had to spend just lots of money to make the car ready, something that would have made the production car very expensive, and the Chrysler badge wouldn't have made things easier. Plus, Chrysler was on a rebuilding phase, so they just couldn't spend money on a project like this. But the main reason was Daimler. From the get-go there was a war between Chrysler and Daimler, with the latter one seeing themselves as far more superior, and Daimler would never have allowed Chrysler to have a car like this. But the biggest reason was the SLR McLaren. Mercedes had just presented the SLR, and they would have never allowed Chrysler to have a much better supercar. Now, it would be a bit hard to blame Daimler for not making this car a reality, because the ME412 was built thanks to Daimler. So in the end, it's just a car that would remain only on video games. So guys, thank you for watching and see you next time.